Also for Shlema for Ruvain ben Bilha. Okay, usually we say a little tefillah before we learn that this learning should be mekushar to all the tzadikim that are in the planet, that are in the globe right now, and all the tzadikim that have passed away, and specifically Bifrat Rabbeinu HaKadosh Rabbeinu Nachman ben Fege Zechutam Yagen Aleinu Vel Kol Yisrael Amen. Okay, so it's a big zchut to get together to learn these teachings. Meshivat Nefesh is a sefer that's designed to give chizuk to Am Yisrael, and we're going to open our hearts to see what Breslov or Rabbi Nachman has to offer to us. So all the way at the bottom of the page is Ot Chet. You see at the bottom of the page, the last line on page Lamed Hey. Amen. Okay. Hashem Yitzbarach v'Torato hu ein sof ve'ein tachlit. We know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu and His Torah Kadosha, there is no end. There is no limit. He's not bound. It's endless. The greatness. When a person learns in yeshiva, you start to broaden your horizons. You see that you start to get to levels to realize, wow, I really know that I don't know. The person first walks in, he thinks like he's got it. He starts learning, he sees that, wow, it's mamish unbelievable, it's the whole world. Hukemo she'ein aliyah, next page, be'olam, lefi gdulato yitbarach. Since the person realizes that there is no aliyah, that if one compares himself to Kiviyachol, to Kadosh Baruch Hu, neged the greatness of Hashem, there is no such a thing as elevation, because Hashem is beyond all levels. Ki gavoa ma'al gavoa, Hashem is beyond all loftiness. Kemochein ein yerida be'olam. So too, there is no such a thing as a descent, as going down. Why? What does that mean? Ki b'chol yeridot chas v'shalom yesh yerida garua beyoter. Because whenever a person goes down in yerida, a person can say, wow, I'm such a low guy. The truth is, there's always a level lower. So there's never really you could say that it's a matzav of yerida. Machar sheyesh yerida gerua mizo chas v'shalom. Right? Since that there is another level of yerida that's below that, tzarech leitchazik livli lipol yoter chas v'shalom. The most that a person can do is to say to himself that I'm not going to continue falling. I'm not going to continue going down the ladder. Ve'ikar ha'itchazkut hu, and one should know that the main strength that one has is hu b'koach ha'tzadikim ha'gedolim, is from the strength of the great tzadikim. How so? Shelo amdu la'olam al madrega achat. The tzadikim never stood on one level, right? They were always, Rabbi Nachman said upon himself, that he said he was constantly breaking through levels from one level to another. He was never content. A person should never say to himself, this is my madrega, I reached whatever I reached, I'm good for the rest of my life. Go to shul on Shabbos, I have a little Torah every day, this, that, okay, Lashon Hara is not so great, I have to work on that a little bit more, or I don't know, sometimes I get up late, and a person should never say this is who I am, it is what I am. Right? A person, HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world, right? Ve'yi erev, ve'yi boker yom echad. There's night and day, there's hills and valleys, there's differences in life. Shalom. So a person should never be complacent. He should never say to himself that, I've reached the madrega I want to reach. Remember, Moshe Rabbeinu, before he passed away, he said that my time has reached, because I can no longer go up and down. I can never go back and forward. I've reached the climax, meaning I can't continue. It says in people are into music that have come here. Especially a musician knows. The whole beauty of music is the contrast. You have notes that are going this direction and that direction. Together it fits in and it makes a beautiful harmony, right? It makes a beautiful melody. A person, imagine if you have the same notes, it's constantly going on. Well, that's not music. The whole beauty of music is that there's differences, there's different nekudot. So too, that's why we say nishtabach. We say, all these praises of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in nishtabach, and then we say, habocher b'shirei zimra, that you have chosen music, song and music. Why? What does it matter? He's the Adon Kol HaNeshamot. What does that have to do with music? So the Rabbi Nachman says in Hazamra that everyone has the music of his own soul. Every single Jew, when we come close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we find the nekudot in our life, because we struggle with this Yetzer Hara. This Yetzer Hara doesn't really leave us alone. Not only does it tempt us to do an Avera, not only sometimes, unfortunately, does it get us to do an Avera, but sometimes, most of the time, when we finally give into a desire, it's a package deal. He inserts something inside of us when that happens. What is that? That's a voice of negativity. It's a voice of Yeush. It's a voice of saying that you're insignificant, that your avoda doesn't matter, The average guy, you could go up to him, and he could be learning something, he could be doing a mitzvah. If you go up to him, give him a pat on the back, be like, wow, you're mamish gavaldik, this is great what you're doing. Usually the guy would be like, no, listen, what I'm doing doesn't really mean anything, What do you mean? Hashem Yerachem, chas v'shalom, you're doing the most unbelievable thing in the world. You're learning a Rashi, do you know what that is? You're learning, what olamot you're turning around when you learn one Rashi? We have no idea. We don't really necessarily appreciate our Judaism. It's unbelievable. People the tzadikim would cherish the mitzvot, and they used to realize, they used to bring it at the forefront of their mind, that simcha that was generated. The Kedushat Levi, the famous story. He's waiting to shake lulav and etrog. The whole night he's mamish. He can't wait to do the mitzvah. The etrog was behind a glass. In the fancy cabinet. So he was staring at the etrog, and once he realized it was alot hashachar, he all of a sudden the Chassidim heard a crash, and they come in, they see the Kedusha Levi, he's holding him, he was bleeding a little bit, but he was shaking the lulav and etrog. He didn't even realize about the glass, he just dove for it. There's a level of Torah root that a person has, it's a big deal, people don't know Nebuch. You can't judge anyone bisman hazeh. It's very hard, and we have to remember this. It's a tremendously negative thing when you look at another Jew and you judge him. It could be that the guy's a rasha, it could be that he's doing sins, but how is it that he's really a rasha? Is he really rebelling against the Borei Olam? He has ta'avot, he has distractions, and who knows what his upbringing was like. You have to think where he's coming from, because if you judge him negatively, you're losing a soul. Chas v'shalom. Rabbi Nachman says when you look at an individual and you find his good and you see the good within him, you could bring him to the side of zchut. You could bring him to holiness. It's as if you send an energy, just like yourself. Let's say if a person is down and he feels like he's mamish, he's done so many bad things. When you look at your own nekudot tovot and you give yourself simcha, you start to feel a certain life, a certain energy inside of you. He says it's the same thing with other people. When you look at someone else and you do that too, you send him energy. It's an unbelievable thing. Rabbi Yonatan, when you heard this teaching from Rabbi Nachman, someone was talking about this teaching, it's called a Zamra. Rabbi Yonatan said, you're taking this teaching lightly. He says, if we took this teaching seriously, potentially, we could sit here and bring the whole world back to tshuva, just from the way we look at people.
Some people need more than a nice look, though. They need help. They need to be told the things they're doing wrong.
Enochanami, but we're talking about the initial spark, the awakening. Sometimes, how do you develop a ratzon? Sometimes, unfortunately, a person doesn't have a ratzon to come to holiness. Doesn't even know, he's lost. There has to be something ignited from the inside. You could tell someone, you could go outside and be like, oh, you're not keeping Shabbos. Do you know it's a Isser in the Torah, this, that. A guy I can say, I can't speak for them, but I would say that maybe the average guy would look at you and be like, listen, thanks a lot, buddy, but just back up. I know, you know what I mean?
Or how about get a job?
Whatever it may be, but you have to develop. He has to come. Let's say something, some fire has to develop inside of him to want to get himself together, right? So Rabbi Nachman says you can do that by viewing that guy in a good light, because you don't just, it's not just judging favorably, it's giving the guy an energy. It's a tremendous thing, and the negative is also like that. You can walk in a room, if everyone looks at you like, who the heck is this guy? You know, what's his story? You'll feel it. It's in the air. Somebody, I have friends, you know, they've told me before, they walked in a certain place, they feel like stuffed. They feel like there's no room for them. Why? It's tons of space. There's no room. There's not much, everyone's like critical. It's a very sad thing. We have to drop it. And also that happens to ourselves too. We get critical on ourselves, we put ourselves down. With every Aveira comes this like negative psychologist in our heads that wants to make our Avodat Hashem insignificant. You know, we have to, with the power of renewal, we have to appreciate everything we do. It's a much important thing. This all comes from the koach of tzadikim, because tzadikim were searchers. They were constantly growing. They had ups and downs. They kept on falling, you know, but they got up again. They didn't stay on one level. They weren't complacent, right? Shelo amdu la'olam al madrega achat. They never stood on one level. Va'alu b'chol pam yoter. They kept on growing more and more. Va'afilu keshehigiu l'madrega gavoa shebemadregot. Even when they reached the highest of all levels, afilu l'madrega elyonav v'nora'a ma'od. Even when they reached the tremendously high madrega, afal pichi lo istapku et atzman b'zeh. They didn't satisfy themselves with this. V'omrim, they said to themselves like this: Halo Hashem yitzbarach ein sof. Hashem is endless. Umi yodeh ma sheyicholim b'zeh ha'olam la'asigod. Who knows what a person can grab in this world even more? Al kain heim matchilim b'chol pam machadash. Therefore, their path of the true tzadikim was that they started every time new, fresh. I'm telling you, there was one time in Torah that Rabbi Yonatan said that he sat in front of the crowd and he mamish swore. He says, I swear to you by Shabbos Kodesh that I don't know any Torah right now. I forgot everything. So then he's like, yeah, I don't know what you guys are doing here. You guys should go home. He's like, I don't know why you're standing here. He's like, I understand when I knew Torah there was a reason to come see me, but I don't know any Torah. You could go home. It's you know. And then it was unbelievable. They mamish saw a level of simplicity came over him. He got very simple, and he started explaining. Why is it sometimes these tzadikim have to forget everything and act simple. And then all of a sudden, a whole amazing Torah came out about how the Jewish people survived before the Torah was given, with just simple love of Hashem, and we have to tap into that simple love. And that the way we save, the way that tzaddik saves souls that are lost, that are not connected to Torah, is that he has to forget his Torah and act simple. The most beautiful teaching in Likutei Moharan was unbelievable. You know, the only way they came, and you know, like somebody, the famous Reb Shmelk of Nikolsburg, he was a very high tzaddik. He went to the Maggid of Mezrich to learn. He's a big Talmud Chacham, you know. So all the other Rosh Hashivas, the Litvish Rosh Hashivas, they knew he went to Mezrich, you know, he went by the Chassidish Rebbes. So what did he learn? So when he came back, all the Rabbanim were like, no. So what do you know from Mezrich? And they're all waiting. They want to, like, you know, they're waiting to like slug him up. You know, he's going to say something. And they're like, oh, it's not true. They're waiting to fight. You know. So then he says, what do I know? He's like, I know that I really don't know. And I was like, oh, you know, I was like, killed everybody. Like, what are we going to do with that? You know? That's the madrega. You have to know tachlit ha'yediyah shalom nida, to realize that I'm limited, that I don't know. The Borei Olam runs the world. That's not like your weakness. That's your greatness. The Moshe Rabbeinu was so powerful. He did so many miracles for the Jewish people. He made Paro that was like, I'm the man. He made him into like a little maggot, right? Begging for his life. How? Because he realized it's all from the Borei Olam. He didn't have an ounce of ego. You know, can you imagine he did all these miracles for us? You know, he's taking care of this like rowdy bunch, you know? We're always like complaining and this, that, you know, where's the beef, you know? You know, we're thirsty, where's the water at? You know, after all these miracles. And then we started complaining, you know, we started getting a little rude. We looked at Moshe, you brought us out to the desert to kill us. You know, we had a good life in Egypt, you know? So what do you do when we start getting on chutzpah? You'd think it'd be like, listen, it's a busha the way you're talking. You have to shapen up derech eretz kadma Torah. No, he fell on his face. He's like, I can't believe I don't get you're starting up against me. There's no reason for you to start against me, because I'm nothing. I'm like, I agree. I'm nothing. He didn't say, he's very smart. He said, you know what? Maybe your tightness is really not against me. Maybe you have a problem with Hashem. Maybe you have an issue with your relationship with Hashem. We have to work that out. Let me go talk to Hashem. Let me say what you guys are saying, and I'll come back and say what he's saying. You know what I mean? It's amazing. That's a lesson for all of us in life. Some of the issues we have with the things in our life is not really the things. It's really with Hashem. Because Ein Od Milvado, Hashem is in everything. Hashem is everywhere. When a person has a desire for something, what's in that thing? The only thing that's giving that desire, that kick, is Hashem behind that. Ein Od Milvado, there's nothing besides God, right? So we have to think. Just some people, instead of getting their delights from things that are high from the Borei Olam, they falls. It's called ahava nefula. Their level of desire, their love, falls into insignificant things. You know what I mean? And by the way, the Tiferet Shlomo of Radomska says a beautiful thing. We're coming to Purim. He says this by Purim. He says that one time, the king, he felt exceptionally happy, and he made a famous thing. He says, I'm going to do a thing. I'm going to open the gate on a certain day. I don't know, it's on my birthday. I'm going to open the gates of the palace. Whoever wants anywhere in the country could come to the palace, could take whatever he wants, jewels, anything. It's open. And then everyone was like, this is gewaldig, right? Everyone in the palace was like, oh my gosh, the king lost his mind. That's it. We're finished. We are finished. The kingdom is going to be finished. Why? Because everyone's going to take over everything. They're going to take everything. All the other countries are going to hear. And they're going to be like, wow, they don't have anything. All their resources are down. So let's we could wage war, and that's it. We're done. So they said, we have to stop this. To preserve the kingdom, we have to stop. We can't just let anyone take whatever he wants. So what did they do? They said, let's do something. Let's be smart. So they said like this, that miles away already, like let's say people are going to start coming from their towns and cities. So as they're going on the road, we'll first set up like a nice table with a guy dressed in royal attire, giving hors d'oeuvres, this little wine, like, oh, you're on the journey to the king, right? Slowly, whet their appetite. They'll go another few miles. We'll set up another table, this time nicer, maybe with some nicer hors d'oeuvres, like a little carving station, guy playing violin, and better booze. We'll give him good drinks like mashke, like old, bourbon or something. And then they'll continue going, then we'll put nicer food. We'll put a whole smorgasbord, we'll put drinks that he never drank before, aged whiskeys and this, wow. And what we'll do, get them smashed. We'll just get them all drunk and full, and they'll all fall asleep, and no one will be able to make it to the palace. So he said, but there was two guys that were smart, and they kept on looking at each other. We're like, no, don't, make sure you don't eat too much. Don't go for it. Don't drink too much. Just a sip if you want. Just keep going, because we got to get to the palace. Forget this stuff. So I was reading, this is a little bit like the story of our lives. And then we come to this world wow, this is great. Wow, look at this time. Wow, look at this steak. It's wow, unbelievable. It's the Borei Olam. You want to get to the palace. The good stuff's really there. We're just passing through, right? The Rav Shlomo of Radomsk says this by Purim. It's because Purim is Yom Kippurim. It's really the highest day of the year. Purim is like the gates are open. You just go in the palace, take whatever you want. Adaloyada, get drunk, get smashed, eat, this, that, just distract, whatever. That's his take on it. You could elevate that stuff too, obviously. You're supposed to on Purim. But that's the point. Not to say to yourself that I'm satisfied. I want to go deep. I want to go to a higher level. I'm not going to just take the complimentary little gift and just walk away. No, I want to be a warrior. I want to go for the real stuff. People like so many different forms of intoxications and different forms of drugs and all these things. Why? Because they want to be high. They want to be with the Borei Olam. They want to be on the highest of levels. We do too. That's the truth. It's not like, I can't believe you. You shouldn't want that. No. You should really want it, but want it be'emes. Meaning don't just take like something lower, because it's going to hinder your path. It's going to hinder your journey to get to the really high stuff. We can't even imagine every taiva that we have. We have to know that it doesn't come into a speck of a moment in the Olam HaElyon, being with all the tzadikim, being with the Borei Olam, the feeling that's radiated, how all the mitzvot and all the Torah that we're learning is going to translate, like the Baal HaTanya says, it's going to translate into beams of beautiful light. We can't even describe the beauty. Not all the colors in the world, not all the music, and not only all the pleasures can't put together the feeling of excitement and ecstasy of the soul in the Olam HaElyon. Nothing can compare. The thing is, we have to be people with a mission, with a focus, just like the tzadikim were, right? So therefore, let's just go back. Al kein hem matchilin b'chol pam mechadash. They started again every time new. Ad shebe'emet ba'im b'chol pam l'madrega gavo yoter. Me'od v'chein la'olam. That's how they continued. So therefore, since the tzadikim were masters of that, al kein b'koach tzadikim elu, with the strength of these tzadikim, all of Am Yisrael were connected. We're connected to the tzadikim also. So with their strength, we borrow their strength. Yesh tikva l'chol hanoflim. They give hope to all people that have fallen. Ve'ein shum yush be'olam klal. And there is no despair whatsoever. Since they have constantly been working on this thing of going to the next level, doesn't matter where you are, they've been working, tzadikim work on, it says in Torah Vav, that when a person hears his busha, he feels a rejection, he gets pushed away. Rabbi Nachman says that the only way tzadikim in the higher chambers, in their levels of holiness, that they could enter into a higher chamber, is that if they go through a rejection, and they withstand that with rejection, then the next gate's open for him. Hashem wants to see, are you really a tzaddik? You really want something greater? You really want a bigger light? Let's see how strong you are. No, can you sacrifice your firstborn son, your Yitzchak Avinu? Can you do this? All these nisyonat, and we have tests in our lives, every single one of us, every day. Why? Because the Kadosh Baruch Hu wants to open up the gates bigger, right? He wants to widen the path of the Shefa. We have to be smart and chas v'shalom, and not to get discouraged if we fall, right? Ki af al pi shenidme lo shemiyarida kezot efshar la'alot chas v'chilul. A guy could think that my Yerida, Rabbi, I'll tell you, I don't know, I'm like messed up, I don't know. It's all this stuff that we're learning here is for other tzadikim, it's for guys that are working on themselves, but me, it's not true. He says it seems to an individual that from his Yerida he can't get out. He can't change. Afal pichein mi yodeh gedulat chazdi Hashem. How do you know the limit of Hashem's kindness? Ki yesh chesed kezeh etzlo yitzbarach, because Hashem has such kindness, shigam misham yecholim la'alot, that He can uplift you too. V'chol tza'aka, not only that, every single tza'aka, whenever you cry out to Hashem, shetzoek, afilu b'shol tachtiot, even in mamish, the pit of hell itself, eino nevad, never goes to waste. La'olam, ever. Ech shiyeh achar kach, even if afterwards you may fall, nevertheless, that cry out that you did to Hashem counts as a new beginning. Reb Nosson says beferish, he shows in further on in the Sefer, that even if a person falls, it's amazing, even if he falls mamish 1,000,000 times, and every time he said to himself, I'm going to try again, I'm going to start again. Even though he falls after that, the next day he fell. The fact that he took upon himself a new Kabbalah, he says, that moment, that new beginning, gets capsulized, it gets taken into the heavens, it gets put into a special chamber of new beginnings for that individual. Everyone has this chamber in the heavens with their name, and it was all the hatchalot chadashot, all the new beginnings. So then he says, you know what? He says someday, let's say if Chas v'shalom, that guy is in real trouble and he needs zachut, he says then when he needs it the most, they open up this chamber of new beginnings. They see, wow, look at this guy. He started again like 50 times after he fell. He started again 100 times. Even though you fell the next day, that's the almost unbelievable thing, that it doesn't make sense. You fell the next day. The Yetzer Hara is coming to you right in your head, right at the moment. He's saying, oh, you hypocrite. You started again. Baloney. You know? That's why it's so hard. That's why you get so much sigh, because you start again. You're like, no, the heck with you. I'm starting again. It's not a war. It's an inner war. It's the inner war of David HaMelech. It's unbelievable. Instead of fighting an outside, we're fighting an inside. That's not what it is. We're all fighters of the inside. We're all mamish warriors. Hashem has such chesed that He could lift us up from that. Ki tzadikim, next paragraph. Ki tzadikim anal masigim shekamo she'ein aliyah lo'olam, because the tzadikim they understand just like there's never a real aliyah neged Hashem. Kamo chein ein yerida lo'olam. There is no yerida. Hashem is everywhere. You know, we drink on Purim. The Gemara says, Amar Rava, tzarich chai v'nish lebesume bepuria adalo yada ben baruch mordechai la'aram haman. You have to drink on Purim till you don't know the difference between Baruch Mordechai or Haman. Some Mefarshim, Mishnah Berurah, some Mefarshim say a person could be yotze that in other ways. You could take a little nap. You also don't know the difference between Mordechai and Haman when you nap. You know, the Divrei Chaim of Tzan says, yeah, but the Gemara doesn't say sleep. The Gemara says, drink. So it stops being such a wise guy. Have a l'chaim. Everyone has to know their own madregas. Obviously, sometimes we're dealing with a lot of Bali Tshuva. You have to know how you act when you're drunk. Those guys in Yeshiva in Eretz Yisrael are just starting to learn, but they're coming from such mishugas. They start getting drunk, and all of a sudden you see these really weird, wacky stuff. You have to be careful, especially if you're having a Suda. If there's Rebbitzins in the house, you have to act, mamish. It's important. But if you could get drunk responsibly, then there's an Indian. Right? There's an Indian to drink till you don't know the difference between. Why do you say this phrase for? It's so interesting. Till you don't know the difference between Mordechai, Ar Haman, and Baruch Mordechai. What's going on? The whole year I'm trying to train myself to think this is Ar Haman, this is Baruch, this is bad, this is good. What are you doing to me? You know what I mean? Eitzadat Tovara. We messed up. We ate it, so Tovara got mixed up. So now I got to separate. I got to fix. This is good. This is Asur. This is Mutar. Adelo Yada. Bein Ar Haman the Baruch, no difference. What the heck are you talking about? And then the Gemara starts with another story after that. Oh, by the way, it was two Amoraim. One invited the other one. This one came over, and then they got drunk. They were having a whole debate in halacha. I think some of the Farshim may say they were talking about shchita, how to do it. And one got so revved up, saying, "No, this is the way to do it. I'm telling you, you're wrong." He took out a sword. He chopped the other guy's head off. So all of a sudden, it says in the story, then later on, the Rav sobered up and he realized, what the heck did I do? I killed the other guy. So he said, you have to realize, it's a Gemara. So he said, then he davened for him, and miraculously he became back together. It was like, and then the following year, he says, he met him in the street. He says, you want to come to me again for Sudas Purim? So then the guy was like, "There's miracles like this don't happen every day, buddy. I got really lucky that time. You know what I'm saying? Maybe ease up. Maybe ease up on the booze. No one says that. Maybe that. Well, maybe you shouldn't drink on Purim. You're taking out blades. What are you doing? You know what I'm saying? So what does this mean? What does it mean? So a Rabbi of mine in Ezra Academy, he said once. He says, we could find ourselves in many different situations in life. We could find ourselves in situations, like a Baruch Mordechai situation, like I'm learning, I'm davening, I'm in yeshiva, this is great, we're at a Breslov Chabura, it's Baruch Mordechai, we feel it, it's great. The light of the tzadikim are shining on us. But sometimes, a person could find himself mamish in an Ar Haman situation. It's like, where am I? It's dark, it's mamish, there's no light here, there's no kiddusha here, I don't have anything going in my life. There's many people in life. There's so many different madrigas you could go on, aliyot, yeridot. There's so many levels. People find themselves, they grow up in a religious home. Some people grow up in a home with nothing. You're supposed to come to a level on Purim, you're supposed to get drunk that that I know in every madrega ein, there is nothing. There's nothing, ein od milvado. There's no difference between Arham and the Baruch Mordechai. No matter what situation I may be in, ein od milvado, I could tap into Hashem right there wherever I am. Even if I'm mamish smashed on the floor, drunk in some clown outfit, Hashem is with me. Mamish. Ein od milvado. I could be in the deepest pit of darkness. That's the whole thing of Purim. We wear masks because they could look like it's mamish. Haman's there. Haman ben Amdata, and he's causing such problems, and Esther gets taken to the palace, Mordechai is destined to be hanged, and the Jewish people are destined, chas v'shalom, we know what he wanted to do. But we have to believe that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is running the show, and ein od milvado. Tap into that Emuna, everything could turn around for good. It's a crazy thing. People that don't understand it. You can't really explain it. It's your soul, it's your neshama to believe that there's something greater. There's an inyan that everything can turn around for good. That's your nakuda of the tzaddik inside of you. That's the part of you that's connected to Mordechai, to Techelet Mordechai. Teshuatam ha'ita lanetzach. Their salvation was for eternity. The message of Purim is forever, and that's why when Mashiach comes, the main holiday is going to be Purim, because it's the light that surpasses everything. Maybe that's why there's a mitzvah to get drunk on Purim. Because what are you doing? Every Yom Tov, you give something to Hashem. There's a special mitzvah you do. You come to Hashem, you present Him with something. Some Yom Tovim, you work on the inyan of Achila. Some Yom Tovim, you work on other inyanim. When it comes to Purim, the matana you give to Kadosh Baruch Hu is like your moach. I don't know anything. It's just you. You come to the Madrig, you say, I'm not in control of Borei Olam. You are the one that's in control. And even we thought we were in control. We thought, by the way, it says nowhere in the Megillah, Shem Hashem. So, some professor in, Queen's College could be like, yeah, I can explain the story. It's just like a regular story. But a Jew reads the Megillah, it's all Gilui. It's all Gilui HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's Megillah, it's Legalot. It's to realize that behind there is all Hashem, behind the hiddenness. That's the Indian of our lives. It's mamish every single one of us, every single day, to realize that Hashem is behind the picture. You know how many you could be in business? A guy's doing business deals. You have to realize Hashem is behind the business. A person happens. You get a kapara. You realize Hashem is giving the kapara. Accept it right there. Accept it. Why fight against it? You're gonna curse. You're gonna this that. Oh, I can't believe this that. Chas v'shalom. Don't miss the opportunity. Realize that it's Kadosh Baruch Hu. And He's doing it to you for a reason. It's a chesed. He's probably trying to clean you up so you don't get the bigger potch later on. So you just get it out of the way. You got the tikkun, you accept it that's from Kadosh Baruch Hu, and you move weiter. We've moved through a lot worse things. Hope, tikva. Right? So it says over here. Let's go on. So the tzadikim that were able to be masik levels that were more beyond. Va'al kein elu tzadikim. Sorry, went a little further. Let's go from the third line. Okay, Masha tzadik oleh l'madrega gavoa yoter umasik yoter gedulat Hashem umasik chazdi Hashem. The greater that a tzaddik elevates in levels, he realizes the kindness of Hashem. He realizes that His kindness is so great, it's so much more beyond than he ever imagined. Shezeu ikar gedulat Hashem. This is the main greatness of Hashem Yisbarach. Ki midat hachesed nikra gedula. Because what is called great, when we say, according to the Ari, when we say certain words in Shemona Esrei, it means certain things about a Kadosh Baruch Hu. And when we say Hakel HaGadol HaGibor, when we say the word Hagadol, the Arizal says that that's referring to Hashem's chesed. The love, the kindness of the Borei Olam. That is called Gedula. Right? Kedu as it's brought down. Tikkun Zohar and so on. So these tzadikim that they realized they elevated from level to level, and in their elevation process was an awareness of how great Hashem's kindness is. Hainu ki godel chasadav al yedei zeh, from this zochin lasig ki ein shum yerida unafila be'olam, that there is never a descent. You can never fall off the map. You can never be off. Oh, Rabbi, I'm off now. There's no such thing. I'm on a Yerida. I'm on a Nefila. You know what the Kutzker said? He says, you know when a Jew goes in a Nefila, he falls. You know where he falls? He falls on the lap of a Kadosh Baruch Hu. That's where he falls. You never fall off. You know? And the tzadikim are connected to you. Always. There was a guy, I just remembered, I don't know. There was a guy like in the 70s. He joined the Peace Corps. He used to go around. No, he's completely fried, and he wasn't connected to Judaism at all. He had this midah of chesed. He wanted to go around the world in all these third world countries, and to help people with sicknesses. He used to take medicine and help people. It was a beautiful thing. So he goes. He's traveling with a backpack with long hair with a group, and he goes in some of these these like jungles. Like in these really far out places, these tropical places, there's a lot of different types of insects. So one time something bit him, and some of these insects, if you get the wrong bite, like it's just it's a matter of time till you could die. Chas v'shalom. So something bit him, and mamish he got weak, and he fell, he got dizzy, and he passed out, and he was dying. The group forgot about him. It was a big group that were going, and they just kept on going. So he's in the middle, in the middle of Africa somewhere, like in the middle of some jungle, and he's like sitting there. And the next thing that happened was, he doesn't know what happened. All of a sudden, he opens his eyes. He's in a hospital, and he's like, hooked up to stuff, And he's like thinking, how did I get here? All of a sudden, he opens his eyes. Some guy comes to the table, to the bed, with this big bushy beard, looked like a Lubavitcher. And he's like, "Oh, Shalom Aleichem." He's like, "You feeling a little better?" I can imagine he probably asked him, "Oh, did you put on tefillin today?" So then the guy goes, he's like, "How did I get here? What happened to me?" So he says, "Listen," he says, "I'm an assistant of the rabbi in Johannesburg, right?" And he says, all of a sudden, today there was a call from 770 in New York. Right? It was from the Rebbe's headquarters. We get a call, all of a sudden, that the Gabbai said, Rabbi Groner said, the Rebbe wants to talk to you, and you should get on the phone and come with a map. Okay, come with a map. He says, take this map, and he started looking. He says, look at this section, find this section, E2, line number 4, and he started searching, He's like, you see this spot in the jungles? He's like, you see that? And finally, it took him a while. He's like, fine. He's like, yeah. He's like, right here. You see right there, that single spot right there? And then the guy was like, yeah. He's like, okay, right there's a Jew that needs you. You have to go help him immediately. And the guy's like, oh, okay, so I'll try to get a boat. They said, no boat, nothing. Get a helicopter now. So the guy, he called the medics, this, that, we got to go. Just with Emuna. The guy in the helicopter would be like, you're nuts. He did it. They lowered the ladder, and there was a Jew that was lying there, was dying. They took him right away to the hospital. How could that be? How could that be? The tzaddik knows everything. How does he know he's traveling? Because we have to know that tzaddikim are like connected. They have these like little like strings attached to every single one of us. Every single one of us, at all moments, whether we're doing good stuff or whether we're doing bad stuff, they know. When we're doing good stuff, they're encouraging. When we're doing bad stuff, they know, and they're davening for us. They're connected to us. There's never letting go. Moshe Rabbeinu, Hashem said, you want to let them go? Let's try it. He made the story in the Chumash so we could read. Hashem said, let them go. I'll make a new nation for you. What do you say? They're sinners. What do you say? He's like, no, you're going to destroy them, destroy me. Why did he do that for? Why did Kadosh Baruch Hu do this for? Just to say, well, Moshe Rabbeinu's a nice guy. No. It's because to show you that your essence of your neshama is bound to this man, and his neshama is bound to yours. You can't separate the two. You're connected to tzadikim. Encourage, nourish that connection. Breathe positivity in that. Take advantage of it. First of all, the Lubavitcher is buried very close to here. And I try to take advantage. I go to be by his kever. He's a tzaddik. Doesn't mean you just go to Uman. All the tzadikim, Kulam Kadoshim, they're all holy. You have to take advantage. It's a very special thing. It's mamish a big schut. And with the koach of them, the fact that they understood Hashem's kindness so powerfully, in such a deep level, they knew that Hashem's love and compassion expands to even people like us, and even people that are so much lower, right? That they realize that there is no such thing as a Yerida. There's no such thing as a Yerida. You never fall away from Hashem. Hashem is everywhere. Unafilo be'olam. Ve'ein shum yeush be'olam. That's what the Rebbe screamed from the bottom of his heart. He screamed, and Reb Nosson said, when he was saying it so loud, he said, we realized that he wasn't just talking to us. He was talking ad bias Mashiach tzidkenu, that there is no despair whatsoever. No matter what you've done, you could think you've done the lowest of the low, whatever sin you've done. But you know what? Somebody came to the table. Talmid Chacham asked, a friend of mine, he said, oh, but doesn't the Rambam, the certain halachot with tshuva, some things you can do tshuva for, some things, it's not so simple when you could do tshuva for, how you could do tshuva for, maybe your tshuva won't be accepted, so on and so forth. Very good questions. Very good questions. And not only that, but the Zohar also says certain things that you can't do tshuva for. But the Rambam, I'm sure, will be mochel when we say it, because Rabbi Nachman came out and said that I am telling you, I understand what the Zohar means. I know what these, and I'm telling you that you could do tshuva. It's not face value. It doesn't mean what it means. There's a medrash that says when HaKadosh Baruch Hu created tshuva, he presented tshuva. It's very deep. He presented tshuva to Torah. He said, Torah, meet tshuva. What do you think about him? Torah said, I don't get him. I don't understand him. And Hashem's like, okay. Tshuva is beyond Torah. A person, we're ma'aminim, b'nei ma'aminim. Ma'aminim is we believe in the Torah. B'nei ma'aminim means that even if we fall off the spectrum of Torah, we believe that we can always do tshuva. And the tzaddik is mitorer that. And sometimes that's a test. That's an assignment for us. That's a big assignment for us. Like we said the story of the four that went to Pardes. They went to high levels in the heavens. The only one that came down that was intact and kept growing was Rabbi Akiva. The other ones, every single one of them, something happened. One died. One couldn't come back in his body, b'chlal. One lost his mind and one went off the derech. And the one that went off the derech is very interesting. He went off the derech. How could it be? Because it says in the heavens he heard a voice. He really saw one of the highest malachim, the malach memtet, and he said in the heavens, Shuvu banim la'avichem chutz me'acher. Everyone return to Hashem Yisbarach besides you. And he pointed at me. And he said this story to Rabbi Meir when he was riding on his horse on Shabbos. While Rabbi Meir was walking with him and talking Torah. It's amazing. So the Baal Shem Tov stopped right there. He said, you want to know something? That was his final test. If he would have been like, the heck with this, I don't care, Hashem, I'm still going to sit outside your palace. Even though that you're slamming the door on me, I'm still going to pitch my tent here because I love you. And I'm going to wait for you till you open the gates. Let me in. He says he would have been the greatest. Somebody came, the Nomali Melech had a thing that you want to come learn with us, fine. But if you want to come and say, oh, I'm a descendant of this one and that one, you want to start talking like a hotshot, you don't belong here. Right? Anyone that was a descendant of a tzaddik, you don't belong in this shiur. Yeah, the rules, very interesting. So one time, the Naftali of Rapshitz, he wanted to come to the shiur. He was a chassid, he was a tzaddik, he wanted to come here, the shiur. So they didn't let him in. Why? Because he was a descendant of the Shlah HaKadosh. Very prestigious, rabbinic lineage. So they didn't let him in. Until they saw he was sitting outside crying, screaming so hard, let me in. He was screaming, it's not my fault, my parents were tzadikim. He was like screaming. Until they saw he coughed blood a little. He was like screaming, crying so hard. The Mama Mech said, let him in. It's okay.
Why wouldn't he?
So there's a thing, because some people say, oh, I'm a descendant of this one. No, they kind of get a feeling that because I'm like riding on their shoulders kind of thing. No, Rabbi Nachman said, somebody said to Rabbeinu, he said, Rabbi, you reached your levels, you know why? Because you're a descendant of the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh. The Rebbe got so upset at him, he got so angry. He said, that's the furthest thing from the truth. He said, I became who I became because I had tests and I worked on myself. I broke my desires. And he pointed at Reb Nosson. He said, Reb Nosson became a tzaddik because he worked on himself. He toiled. It's a big mistake to think, I know descendants of certain tzadikim. Hashem should help.
My friend is the Enikel of Reb Noam Eloi Malach.
That's it, get out of here.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, gee, you need to
I was sitting there, we were in Uman, we were sitting with a few friends, and then a friend of mine passed by, and I was like, and there was another chassid that just walked in, he sat next to me, a very humble guy, he was just sitting. So then I said, my friend passed by, I said, my friend, I said, it's big stuff, we should be mocker him, he's a descendant of the Kedushas Levi, or Levi Yitzchak Berditchev. So the guy, I kid you not, it was a shkacha, I don't know how this happened, but the guy was like, so what? He's like, I'm also a descendant. I was like, really? He's like, yeah. Taka was, but he didn't make it such a big deal. It's no big deal. So what? You make your life what you do with yourself. Somebody came to the Ger Rebbe, and he said that the previous Ger Rebbe, the Pnei Menachem, and he said to him that he said, I come from Ger Chasidim. He's about Tshuva, but his parents went off a little, but then he came back. But he told him, he says, you should know, my great grandfathers, they were Ger Chasidim. So then the Ger Rebbe was like, he says, I don't care where you come from. I care from where you want to go. You know what I'm saying? Like, what are you talking about the past, Like, where do you want to go from now? Who are you now? Where are you? That's who you are. It doesn't matter. For sure, it's a big schus. I'm saying, like, if your ancestors were tzadikim and you're a tzaddik and you tap into that power, for sure, it's very powerful. But it depends on you. It's all on your shoulders. Right? Ein shum yesh b'olam. Ki masigim, top of the next page, Lamed Zayin. Masigim b'chol pam chasadim ke'elu. They realize tremendous chasadim, the tzadikim, shehem ikar gedulat habore. This is the main greatness of Hashem. Ad she'al yedei zeh hakol yecholim la'alot. Until everyone can elevate. V'al kein be'emet afilu akatanim b'mala me'od. Even people like little pishers, right? Little guys that are in very low levels, va'afilu im noflu l'rishut gamur. Even if they fell in evil, mamash evil. There's no way about it. This is straight up bad. Okay? Chas v'chalila. Afal pichein kol zman she'anashama bekirbam. The whole time that they have a neshama inside of them. Kol zman she'echolim lazuz od. The whole time that they can move. They have the potential to move towards something holy. Be'ever echad. With one of their limbs. To move your hand to do a mitzvah. If you still have that ability, tzarichim laharich apam verucham. The person can find hope. He has to be patient and find the hope in connecting to Hashem. Ulatzapot leYeshua, and to wait for Hashem's salvation. Tamid. Lehitgaber, to overcome, to overpower. Lahatzchil bechol pam mechadash. That every time to start fresh. Start new. It doesn't matter you fell. Let's start now. The past is nothing. Bechol ma sheyecholim. Grab whatever you can. Yeah, ech however it is what it is. And even if who knows if you're going to stay like this. At least try. Ki ein shum tenua de kedusha. There is not one single movement in Judaism towards holiness. Velo shum anacha. Not even one sigh. Not even one like... that you do towards Hashem for yearning for holiness, not one of them gets lost. Ever. It's remembered eternally. You hear that? One little sigh, one little like, people are thinking, and I daven and I'm like sweating and I'm shaking, that's when I'm shaking up the heavens. One little sigh is never lost. You made it into something eternal. Netzach. Nebat klal la'olam. Ki lo yiznach la'olam Hashem. Hashem never abandons. Ki rabim rachamav v'chasadav. Hashem's compassion is everlasting. Ad ein sof, without any end. Ve'ein tachlit kenisker le'el. I'll just end off with a little story. One time, there was a guy, a Lubavitcher. It's interesting we're talking about Lubavitch. He was riding on the train late at night. He came back from 770, really late at night. This is back when the Rebbe was alive. And as he's riding on the subway, he notices a guy sitting in front of him. He didn't have a kippah on, he didn't have the begadim like a Jew, but he had a look that he's thinking, maybe this guy's Jewish, there's something about him. And not only that, the guy was very happy. He was very besimcha. Like he had like a smile on his face. So the guy was like, let me try, So he sat next to him. He sparked up a conversation. And then the little conversation said, oh, by the way, are you Jewish anyway? And he says, yeah, I am, actually. And he says, oh, great, all right, you're beautiful. So then he said that, can I ask you something? You look really happy. Is there something going on in your life? Is there a reason why you're so happy? He says, yeah, as a matter of fact, he's like, I'm actually getting married in less than a week. And he says, by all means, you should come, and the wedding's going to be in so-and-so church on this block. So the rabbi he just kept smiling. He's like, oh, wow, really? Wow. And then so then he says, who's the lucky lady? Oh, her name's, Christine Fernandez, something like. He's like, oh, he kept smiling, like, oh, really, He realized, she's not Jewish, So then he says, you know what? I was just thinking, you're getting married, maybe before the wedding, your wedding's in a couple of days, maybe you'll come. There's a certain rabbi I know, a very special rabbi. I call him the Lubavitcher Rebbe. Maybe let's get a blessing from the rabbi for the wedding. That was the beginning. So then the guy's like, sure, let's get a blessing. And he says, you know what? I know this rabbi. He makes time for me. You could go. We could still go right now. And it was they're like already. He got on the train 2 a.m. Now it's 3 a.m. They got to Crown Heights at 4 a.m. They knock on the Lubavitcher Rebbe's door at 4 a.m. Right? This is pikuach nefesh, right? He understands. So the Rebbe answers the door and he's like, what you got here? So the guy's standing there with his hand around him. He's like, Rabbi. He's like, I want to tell you, my friend, his name's Jack. He's like, Jack's getting married in a few days in a church. So then the Lubavitcher Rebbe understood. He's like, bring him in. And then he went inside the room for an hour with the Rebbe. He came out and obviously, he looked a little emotional and this, that. And the Lubavitcher was walking next to him, like holding him, and he said to the rabbi, he said he's going to stay for Sukkot. It was Sukkot, it was Erev Sukkot that this happened. Like, meaning, let's say Sukkot was Wednesday night, this was Wednesday morning, 4 a.m. So he stayed there for Sukkot, right? Now, meanwhile, the guy stayed for Sukkot. He's getting inspired. He's going to all these cool rabbis' houses. He's hearing stories. He's drinking the kosher wine, right? The Manischewitz, and and he's getting so inspired. And the climax was that it was during Birkat Kohanim. They were up to Birkat Kohanim in Shul. And the Lubavitcher Rebbe all of a sudden stops and he looks around. He's like, "Where's Jack? Where's this guy?" And then they were looking from the rabbi. They found him. Whatever, he was on the side, and he said, "Bring him." And then he came. The Lubavitcher Rebbe told him, "It's like now it's a priestly blessing." And he said, and the Lubavitcher Rebbe said, and the custom is to put a talit over oneself. So he says, since you don't have a talit, he says, you come with me. And the Lubavitcher Rebbe put his own talis over it. So listen to this. The guy, after he came out of the talis, they were like, he was probably in another world, right? So they come to him, they say, how was it? So the guy said, I can't explain what happened to me. He's like, but I can tell you, it's a miracle that I'm still alive. That's what he said. And the wedding was canceled. You know what I'm saying? And the guy became a from star kid. He's married. He's got kids. He's from. We have to. What happened? You can't explain necessarily what happened. The Lubavitcher just took the love of Hashem and showered the guy. He Pasha just showered him with the love of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He exposed him to chesed. You don't have to run other places for love. Hashem is here. It's within your neshama. We have to, mamish, remember this. Every single one of us. Purim is coming. that this is the whole Indian of Purim. That Shuata Ma'ita LaNetzach, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is constantly, his salvation is eternal. He loves us no matter what. Even when we think that He doesn't love us, He mamish loves us. So with this, Mitzvah Hashem, we should tap into the light of Purim, Mitzvah Hashem, to the light of loss and Lavo, to Mashiach Tzidkenu, V'ad lo Yadu. There's no difference between good, bad. It's all good. It's all kulo tov. It's all kulo Kadosh Baruch Hu. With Mashiach Tzidkenu, V'karav mamish. If anybody wants to stay, maybe we're gonna jam. We're gonna groove a little.